what are we talking about today?
Chapter 22.
Evolution. Okay. Which chapter is it? 22. What's the name of it? Yeah. Okay. So the whole unit is called mechanisms of evolution. So how evolution happens, and then the real title of this chapter is. Very good. Descent with modification and Charles Darwin. Because when you think of evolution, you always think of Charles Darwin. Most of us do. What really is just an everyday language? What does the word, and I'm big on word stems, but I guess I'm not really getting into the word stem for this, but I am big on word stems. I gave you a couple things in that beginning packet with your intro about word stems and also how to identify words, which help with studying. So there's some study stuff in there in that first packet. Anybody else not get the first packet? Okay, good. So what is the simple definition for evolution?
Adaptation of a whole species.
Adaptation of the whole species. Oh, that's kind of an interesting definition. So what is adaptation? Okay, let's do that. Okay. Who was talking over here?
How it changed to be better fit for the environment.
Ah, it used to be better fit for the environment. That's right. Do you remember back in 1081, you learned about the hierarchy of organization, like molecules, cells. So a group of cells working together to perform a special function makes up which level of organization?
The organ system.
Tissue? Okay. A group of tissues working together. In fact, we only have 4 tissues in our body: epithelial, connective, muscle, and nerve. And they work together to make a special organ, very musical. And then you have a group of organs working together to perform a special function that they're working together, like the blood vessels and the heart. Then you have a which level of organization? Organ system, right. And system for short, systems. And we've got about, depending on how you combine them, about 11 systems of the body. You know, like digestive and circulatory. So there are about 11 of those. And we will be studying at the end of this semester, go through each one of those in a rather rapid fashion, but we'll give you, and also compare it to some other animals, the comparisons between them. So then the systems in a multicellular animal then makes up the organism, or if it's a plant. But so it makes up a plant. Or an animal, so it's an organism. Any complete and living thing is an organism, right? So we have bacteria, which are prokaryotic cells, the domain archaea, which is all eukaryotic, and then for the eukaryotic domain of classification, we have protists, protista, we have fungi, we have plants, and we have animals. Does that all sound familiar or not? Kind of. Anybody think it sounds familiar? Okay, well, even if it doesn't, we're spending a good part of this course on biodiversity. Okay, and so it's a different variety of different types of organisms. So, adaptations, you said, had something to do with making a better fit for the environment. Features or phenotypes. Remember phenotypes and genotypes? Phenotypes, named on whether you pronounce it right or not. Different people, depending on where you went to college, probably say it a little different. But phenotype is what you actually see, or what actually is illustrated. For instance, hair color is a phenotype. Skin color is a phenotype. How big our nose is a phenotype. I mean, we've got all kinds of things which we expect. around the room, how many of you look exactly like somebody else in this room? 0 is probably correct. There's great diversity, different. Of course, I think it would be a great world if everybody was exactly like me, don't you? Absolutely not. I'm a big diversity person. I love the fact that everybody's different. And that we celebrate our differences. So, evolution is really change over time. If you want to put the simplest definition, and what you've contributed all fits into that. I'm just making it simpler. Okay, it's all part of it. An adaptation is the adjustment of the individual so that it fits in better with the environment in which it lives. Because in the end, according to what Darwin told us many, many years ago, it's all about, now humans, I'm not sure I have this, but in terms of the whole nature itself is the ability to survive and the ability to reproduce. Evolution is really adaptation, natural selection, which is the major mechanism of most evolution, is all about surviving, and of course, once it survives, reproduce better. You can very well reproduce if you're not living. Okay. I do say bizarre things sometimes. I will sometimes say things that are way off, and I'll just wait to see if I get a reaction. I do have a rather dry sense of humor at times, and I do pun quite a bit. Sorry. So if you chuckle, you get a point. But anyway, this is about change over time, and there's really two. You've all, at various points in your education, you've probably been presented. And that all happened within 50 years' time or so, that you've had a total shift of that population. And that's where I was going to, that I did kind of a little bit. We got the organism level in terms of hierarchy. And if you have a group of organisms, like right here, we are a population of Homo sapiens. And for startup purposes, I went over this in lab today, not with the word Homo sapiens, but this is our genus and our species. And the word Homo actually has a Greek origin and a Latin origin. And one of them means the same, but the other one means, and so this is what it means. This is the genus name, and this is the species name. So in binomial nomenclature, that parallel taught us, you write the genus name first and the species name second. How to correctly write a scientific name. I want to make sure we all know how to do it, because this could be on exam material. No matter what the scientific name is, you should be able to write it correctly. And also, if you're reading primary literature or reading some sort of scientific article, sometimes they separate these two words. And you can tell which one's which. They don't have to tell you. They don't have to say, this is the genus, or this is the species. Because the genus name is always written with a capital letter. The species name, this is the second point, is always written with a lowercase letter. So if you're reading something where they've been separated, this will always be a small s, that'll mean it's a species name. And they're both either italicized or underlined, both names. So, and the genus name is usually like a noun, and the species name is sort of like an adjective, a descriptive. The species name is the most specific. We've had Homo neanderthal, right? A human line that were Neanderthals. But we are now evolved into, we're in this species now. And what we have to do is live up to our names, because this translated means, anybody know? Smart, wise, right? Okay, smart, wise, wisdom. So human or person, of course they used to say man, but let's just keep it inclusive, not man versus female, but all humans. Okay, so person of wisdom, humankind of wisdom. And so that we have to live up to our name there. But in terms of the hierarchy thing, organisms, a group of organisms, make up a population. So, of the same kind. So if you have a group of deer that live down in a meadow, you would say it's a population. You have a population of deer in that particular area. I also want to introduce the word ecology. It's hard to get ecology and evolution separate. So that's why we've combined some with the section. And ecology is a branch of biology that studies interrelationships between living and non-living in the environment. And of course, if you go to word stems, you know you are in biology, and biology is the study of living things. So you would imagine that this would be the biotic factors of an ecosystem, which is where you have this interrelationship. And these being, if you place an A or an AN in front of a word, it makes it the opposite. Anaerobic versus aerobic respiration. So it's an interrelationship between the biotic and the abiotic factors, and ecology studies those interreactions. Okay, and so, and then if we have a group in an area, a specific area, we have a group of all organisms living in that same area, and so what does that make up? I'm trying to use as many people as I can here. I need to have my handy dandy chart. Amy? I'm sorry, what?
Ecosystem.
Not yet. We're getting there. We're almost there. Yes. Community, yes. Populations make up a community. So this is not hard. We say Batavia community. So you've got dogs, cats, plants, all kinds of plants. You've got, you've got humans, you've got all kinds of organisms living there, and then the actual interaction, the interactions that you're talking about with the physical environment in a certain area. Think of a pond as a pond ecosystem, which is a whole set of dynamics that are unique to that particular area. And then you actually, a type like a pond or like a, we are the deciduous forest. We live in a deciduous forest biome, a special type, or a desert biome, or a body of water, whether it's marine or whether it's aquatic. And every place on Earth where organisms exist is the whole biosphere. So when we talk about evolution, we talk about ecology, we need to be sure we know these levels, because this is what I want to say before I go any further with the presentation of C22. I like to do a big picture usually, and then go to more detail. This in terms of evolution, evolution occurs at the population level. The groups of organisms of the same kind that live in a certain area, and at the organism level, due to genetic variation, you have adaptations of individuals and how they react with their environment. And we said earlier, the goal is to survive. And reproduce. To be the most successful, in fact, they even call it fitness. It's an evolutionary fitness for the population, to be able to carry on more offspring. Now, if the environment changes, we just talked about the peppered moth. If the environment changes, then another group could be more fit. Because fitness then has to do with surviving and reproducing. These are sort of like the big evolutionary concepts. And the main, there are others too, but according to Darwin, the primary mechanism is natural selection, survival of the fittest. Darwin, let me see if I can get this. That problems with this computer didn't. Okay, so if I go to your Blackboard, Blackboard login,
A little bit more.
Yeah, up a little bit.
Oh, yeah, click that X.
Click the X.
Yeah, and then if you hit the arrow right there,
Yes.
then you can get jump your name.
Thank you. They do, they all look different. The one in the adjunct office is different. Okay, so what I really want to do is go to learning modules. And this is where I put the PowerPoints. We're going to skip around this one. Okay, this is, the cover is going to look different because I picked this up from the 11th edition. The reason why I messed that up is because the syllabus that I asked for from the more recent, because I haven't taught this course for a few years, and I asked for a syllabus from the department, and the syllabus that I got from whoever taught this last said it was 11th edition. And, but anyway, it is so similar because I've looked at them both side by side. The beginning of the chapter starts out with showing you the beautifulness of organisms and the unity of how similar they can be to the unity and diversity, and how some blend with their environments and like they may be the same color. We're back to the peppery moth situation. And Lepidopterans are butterflies and moths. It's an order of mammals, or it's an order of arthropods, the insects, and Lepidopterans. They're suited to life in their environments. They show the unity and diversity of life. And you see this moth? You see how it blends with its environment? You can't see it.
The lightning stand a little.
That might not be a bad idea. I'm sorry.
We can see again.
Oh, I was just demonstrating the lightness and darkness,
But it's been doing
Thank you
pretty
for
good.
telling me. Okay. Isn't that cute?
Oh, that is adorable.
Caterpillar, egg, larva, pupa, adult, the complete metamorphosis. So a whole new era of biology began in 1959 with Charles Darwin publishing The Origin of Species. It focused biologists' attention on the great diversity of organisms. Big concept here. He noted in his adventures that current species kinds are descendants of ancestral species, thus descent with modification, which is the title of which is there. And as I told you, change over time, but descending from ancestors. We do share common ancestors in the primate order of the mammals, but we went off on a whole different pathway. So people who don't take the time to look at the details and to understand evolution sometimes totally get the whole concept wrong. And for one, they don't think that that scientists even believe in evolution because it's only a theory. What's the strongest statement? What do we call the strongest statements that have been documented by scientists time after time after time after time? We call them what? Well, the little observations and facts. Well, sometimes there are laws, particularly when you get into some of the chemistry and the physics, you have more, yeah, you can call them laws, but they're called theories. A theory is based upon a grand scheme of evidence that's been repeated time and time and time again. It's been peer reviewed by scientists that specialize in that area, and they've actually come together in these conferences, and they've discussed this. Do we have a strong enough evidence base in order to call it a theory? So the theory is the strongest statement we can make that this is the way it is based on the technology that we have today. But you see, the thing they don't get about the scientific evidence is that we leave it open-minded, because we never know with invention of some new technology that we'll find something deeper that will help to uncover another layer of information to modify it. Okay, one typical theory is the cell theory. All living things are made of cells. They used to believe in a lot of people used to believe in spontaneous generation until the 1830s or 40s, until Louis Pasteur and some other people came along, which, because science was not something well accepted, that, for instance, your recipe for how you get frogs is you take the mud around the pond and that abiotic substance just turns into a frog. That's what people believe. People also believe that we get earthworms from rain. Well, what evidence is there? Well, every time it rains, you'll see earthworms coming to the top. So they don't drown, and then they do die anyway, usually. Some of them do. Or get picked off by a robin or some other bird. But anyway, that's why the robins are always hanging around when it rains. These are all ecological things. It's called predator-prey relationships and so forth. And they used to believe, they actually had a recipe for mice. I love this one dirty, sweaty man's shirt placed in a granary where there was corn or wheat, and poof, within a few number of days there would be mice. This is called spontaneous generation or abiogenesis. People believe this stuff, and we had to go through a whole series of experiments, and Louis Pasteur was the one who kind of put no, living things come from other living things. They lay eggs.
And then there was also a period of time where it's all religion back to, where it's like,
Absolutely.
it's all in the name of God and nothing else. Too.
Exactly, and that's why people like Gregor Mendel, with the father of genetics, was not well accepted for doing his little heredity pea plant experimentations. I mean, because he was a monk. That story is kind of funny because he kept his data and all of his research of doing garden peas. He did have one at the monastery, but he knew that something suspicious. So people like Hutton, and then Malthus was the one who said that there's an overpopulation. He observed that organisms tend to overpopulate, and he wrote an essay about human population going out of control. And from that, I mean, Darwin was born up here in 1809. Cuvier established his extensive studies of vertebrate fossils, paleontologists studying fossils. Lyell published his Principles of Geology, Earth Science, and then 1831 to 1836 is when Charles Darwin actually took his voyage on the HMS Beagle. And the Galapagos Islands and all these different islands, these different places he visited, he served as a naturalist, and he took copious notes and drawings and observed, sat and watched and observed the differences in organisms from different places. And in 1859, his main manuscript was published. Was not well received by many people because of that nasty evolution word. But really all it means is change over time. It's not the way people thought it was. These are just some of the things he saw. I think the Galapagos Islands would be a wonderful place to visit. They're sort of west of South America, around the equator. Wallace, there was another guy who was also studying at the same time. They kind of borrowed some different information from each other. Let's go back to the really old historical bases. Aristotle, Greek philosopher. Well, the Greek philosopher viewed species as fixed, and he arranged them on scala naturae, and in other words, it was a straight line. You know, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and they never changed. That was a beginning viewpoint. And the Testament holds the species were individually designed by God and therefore perfect. Linnaeus, I just mentioned, is the father of taxonomy, and that stuff I just told you about genus, species. You know, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Those categories are his. Although he wasn't convinced about what we know today, but he at least did classify them on their diversity and tried to put them into groupings. So he's the founder of taxonomy, and he developed this Homo sapien, this binomial format. Again, fossils are remains of traces of organisms from the past, usually found in sedimentary rock, which are layered, which appears in layers called strata, stratified rocks, sandstone, limestone. And younger strata with more recent fossils are up here. Here in the Batavia area is a very heavily fossilized area. If you do any digging, and like the creek, if you go down over the hill here into the creek, you'll find loads of fossils. And they're from the Ordovician period of geologic time, which is about 250 million years ago, or older. This whole area used to be an ocean. And these were organisms that used to live in the ocean. Okay, so the older stratum with older fossils were lower. Paleontology is the study of fossils. And then there was Hutton and Lyell, who also influenced his thinking. I'm talking about Darwin. We need to talk. Charles Darwin is the father of evolution. Okay, so you might as well just know that. We call him the father of evolution. But the first person to ever propose a possible mechanism for evolution was Jean-Baptiste, a Frenchman. And if you look at all these different discoveries, you'll find they're from all over the world, which is good to know that it's not just one country that's doing all these discoveries. He hypothesized that species evolve through the use and disuse of body parts and the inheritance of acquired characteristics. Those are the two main things he's known for. Okay, use and disuse, you can kind of argue that a little bit, but it's maybe not perfect today either. What he's most famous for is something that ended up humiliating him. But he was the first to try to explain how things happen. The giraffe hypothesis. I'm going to call it a hypothesis. And by the way, you should all get in the lingo and don't say, I'm theorizing this or that, because now you know a theory is a well-documented, is a really heavy-duty, that's...
Like every theory, like if it has any theory, so like even like stone ape theory has actual backing to it.
Which theory?
Like stone ape theory, like the theory that like fungi have influenced like human consciousness and intelligence and stuff over like.
Well, I don't know. It depends on the specific content and whether or not it is true scientifically backed or pseudoscience. There's a lot of pseudoscience, kind of false science that's kind of mixed in without a lot of really good science. So, but the theory of evolution, the theory of cells, the cell theory, cells come from other cells, disproves the abiogenesis. There's a whole lot of other theories, but most of the time we're hypothesizing, which is an educated guess based upon some observation, and you design an experiment around. Okay, so what Lamarck is famous for is how giraffes got their long necks. 12. Okay. Giraffes got their long neck. And what did he say?
He said that basically their necks just kept growing over time because they were trying to reach food higher up and they kept stretching their
Grass.
necks to.
Grass only have 8 bones, right?
I'm sorry, what?
7 or 8 bones in their neck.
Yeah, well, most vertebrates have 7 bones, 7 vertebrae. Yes, and I think they just have more spacing and thicker vertebrae. But, yeah, that they just kept, giraffes got long necks because there was a drought, not enough food supply, grass, you know, and everything. It was a drought, it was real dry. So the only thing left for food supply, like you said, was to reach higher and higher for leaves. So what happened is they're stretched out, and then when they had babies, they had babies with stretched necks. That's the inheritance of acquired characteristics. Okay, so someone in a more scientific fashion later on said, okay, if this is true, now today, you know, where the ethics of using animals comes into play, but that's ridiculous. We're going to take these mice and we're going to cut the tails off. And then we're going to have them reproduce. And so if Lamarck's theory or hypothesis is correct, then the babies will be born with short tails. Guess what? They were born with long tails. So he really became somewhat humiliated by the scientific community because it was absurd. And it's like the bonsai, the people who do the bonsai plants, and they cut them a certain way and they get them to grow a certain way. Offspring from that type of tree, you have to start over again and shape them by the environmental shaping in order to get them that way. They're just not born that way. With people, if we have a mutation in our body cells, our arm, our leg, do we pass it on? No, it has to be in the sperm and the eggs. That's the only way, and they have to be used. Those sperm and those eggs used. But we give him credit because there's a bonsai example. We give him credit for it. So, Darwin's dad, his father really wanted him to become a doctor. I believe he was. And he wasn't successful with that. He went to school in Cambridge, and then he finally went into theology, the religion part. But then he took this unpaid position as a naturalist aboard the Captain Robert Fitzroy, which is or Captain Robert Fitzroy was the captain of the HMS Beagle. So if you do crosswords and they ask you, what was the name of Charles Darwin's boat, and all this kind of stuff, it's always good to kind of, it was 5 years they went around the world. And so he did what I described earlier. He was influenced by some of the aspects of the geologist's principles. Here's his voyage, starting in Britain and going this way. And you can see, here are the Galapagos Islands, archipelagos, and then continued this way, and then he comes back this way. Australia, Tasmania, all these different, and then finally back up here. Took a long time. We're going to skip the videos, sorry. So, in reassessing his observations, Darwin perceived adaptation to the environment and the origin of new species as closely related processes. The finches are the main example for his observations and inferences. The finches during his visits, I think this was the Galapagos Islands also, he found that the birds have different length beaks. And like this one had a beak for eating cacti, and this one had a longer beak, which is more for insects. And then this one had the short, broad, thick, like a cardinal or a blue jay. And those are definitely for seed eating. So he figured out that they had a common ancestor, and then they like radiated outward into different roles or niches. And over time, the birds, depending on what they ate, the birds that actually had different genetic variations exhibited, some were selected for because of the types of food that they ate, and then they were able to reproduce. So natural selection is, okay, so three broad observations of the unity of life, diversity of life, and the ways organisms are suited to life in their environments. The second modification, it's like the history of life is like a tree with branches representing life's diversity, but there are gaps in it. And this is one of his little sketches of like a tree, and here's an actual evolutionary tree phylogeny. No, you don't have to memorize that, but you should be able to translate it. You should be able, there are branching patterns. You see where one, the big question was the elephants, who their main living ancestors are. And these little crosses mean they're extinct. Okay, so these groupings are extinct. But look up here. The manatees and the hyraxes and their relatives are still living, and they are the closest living relatives to the elephants today. So now, this was natural selection. We all have participated, or our parents or whoever participated in artificial selection of breeding plants or animals to get certain characteristics that's been going on for years and years. So let's quit. We'll continue with this. There will be a quiz on Friday. It can be over. I could even bring up a question or two in that little quiz thing we did together, but also over the information we discussed today, or anything that's really even on that one-page, two-sided, chapter 22 outline for this chapter. Who's doing 24? Okay.
That's the word species, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I was actually about to ask.
Have that.
That's what I was gonna ask. Is there a certain day, like, should I have it by Friday, or like?